OPV 122, presenting the online badge activity 1, celebrating the brain. The materials that I use to create the brain. Number 1, I use Raja. Number 2, I use a glue. Number 3, I use a spaghetti. Number 4, I just use cookie pens. Number 5, I use a piece of box. Then I will go to one to explain the aspects that are in the brain. Number 1, we have the spinal cord. Number 2, the cerebellum. Number 3, the parietal lobe. Number 4, the occipital lobe. Number 5, the parietal lobe. Number 6, the last one, is the frontal lobe. Then I'll mention its function individually soon. I will start with the spinal cord. The function of the spinal cord is to breathing, heart rate, and temperature. Then I will go to cerebellum. The cerebellum, its function is to balance and to coordinate. Then I will go to the temporal lobe, which I use coins at the top of the drawing. The function of the temporal lobe is hearing, learning, and feeling. Basic number 4, the occipital lobe, its function is to sign. Then number 5, the parietal lobe, its function is the language and touch. Then we have the last one, which is the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe, its function is to think, memory, behavior, and movement. Then I'll go back to the brain as a whole. I'll start from the first, the materials that I used to design the brain. I started by drawing it on the A4 paper. Then I used the glue to paste all other materials on top of the drawings. As you can see, then the 3 aspects that I learned during the creation of the brain. I will say that the more you learn is the more you train your brain to do something as a human being. Because you have become good at it. Before I started creating the brain, I did not know what I was going to do. But as soon as I started with the first part, which is the spinal cord, using a pencil to draw it, that's where the idea started to flow into my brain. Then I started by drawing it on the A4 paper, and the more I continue with drawing it, the more the design came into my mind. Then the second thing, I can say that the brain is the best thing in the human body. It is just depends on how, as a person, you treat yours. Everyone can treat their brain to do whatever they want. Referring to myself, at first I thought that I will create the brain using different flowers, but I was like, maybe I can try and design something else using different materials. But my brain loved drawing. That's why when I was brainstorming about the design, my brain was like, you can draw this thing and look for materials that you can paste on top of the drawing to make it look nicer. Then I told my brain that this is the way that I will create my brain. This idea eliminates the idea of designing the brain with different flowers. Because when I thought about the flowers, my brain was like, you are good at drawing, why don't you give it a try? Then the last part, with brain you can do whatever that you want. Because when I was designing the brain, at first I thought it was just a simple thing that I can do it with 1 day or 2 hours. But as soon as I started designing it, I can say it took me a week to design this brain because I told my brain that this was a simple task. But inside my brain, there were many designs that came as I was thinking. But when I saw a pencil, I told my brain that I'm gonna do this design using a pencil. Then the two questions that I have with the brain is why the brain can remember what we see on the television but unable to remember what the teacher has taught us in class. That's still the question that remains unanswered. The second question is, how does the brain learn the habit? Because I always wake up around 7 o'clock in the morning, but I was setting up the alarm. But now on, I don't even set the alarms. I eventually wake up during that time. Then I'll talk about the one specific. I'll talk about one interesting aspect that I found in the brain. As a learner at school, I have a problem of forgetting what I was taught in class, but I was not able to remember anything. But as soon as I told my brain that I want to concentrate in class, that's when I started to remember everything that I was taught in class. But as soon as I remember everything that I was taught in class, I remember that the frontal lobe is the best thing in the brain because it is great thinking, the memory, the behavior, the movement, everything that functions within the brain. Like the frontal lobe is the main one that creates everything inside the brain. Then I thank you.
Well,